What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, Joker back again, once again. Today, we continue our seasonal episodic lore breakdowns with Season 15, Episode 4. There's not really a lot going on in this seasonal episode. Everything largely fits around the themes of family. Both the family you're born with and the family you choose, and what our loyalties and duties to them are, and vice versa. As we sort of gear up for the last 2 weeks of the season, this episode really represents the calm before the proverbial shitstorm that's about to hit the fan. Likely with Crow finding out who he was, either in the next episode or the one after that. But before we get into it, a word from our sponsor, NordVPN. Why do you care about a VPN? Well, if you want to expand your game library, but a game isn't available in your country, no problem, NordVPN. Want to watch Netflix shows restricted to other countries or regions? No problem, NordVPN. Want to search up some less than wholesome stuff on the internet, like hand-holding? You degenerates. No problem, NordVPN. Want to protect yourself from getting DDoSed by salty neckbeards raging in the Trials of Osiris because they don't actually know how to get good? NordVPN. Suddenly find yourself in a situation where your government is becoming increasingly totalitarian and you want to protect yourself maybe from your country's overly restrictive boomer government? You guessed it, NordVPN. It does all of this while protecting your online security from people or companies who might try to do such nefarious things as steal your personal information and sell it online, or I don't know, steal your personal information and have a good old-fashioned time of draining your bank account. On top of all that, NordVPN offers super fast servers in over 60 countries, no data logging, 24/7 customer support, double data encryption for increased anonymity, and you can connect up to 6 devices simultaneously. But Joker! I hear you cry out, oh contrarian commenter of contrarian comments. VPNs are expensive. Well, that's where you're wrong. Go to NordVPN/ButJoker or use the code ButJoker at checkout to get a 2-year plan plus 4 additional months with a huge discount. And if for some traveler forsaken reason you regret your purchase, NordVPN offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. I want to go ahead and thank NordVPN for sponsoring this video and helping us fend off the hordes of yellow YouTube dollar signs. So once again, we are of course summoned to the helm, where we are tasked by the Queen of the Awoken to retrieve yet another one of her Techians. Tech witches, us Guardians call them. Busywork.exe is executed, and we run through the same activities we've been choring through since the start of the season. And while I understand that there was clearly a bit of dev crunch with COVID, changeover in management, a refocus on Destiny as a franchise, a refocus on PvP, the delay of Witch Queen, I really hope that this is the last sort of throwaway horde mode, not horde mode, meant to carry an entire season. We desperately need something far less disposable, that not only carries a season, but still has relevance outside of that season. Something more like the Menagerie, where you do have a cavalcade of activities that rotate, and while yes, eventually you'll play everything, and it wasn't the most engaging thing ever, it wasn't turn off your brain and point your weapon in the general vicinity of bad guys, show up and get some loot, and then, I don't know, repeat or fuck off. But I digress. We also get an interesting argument between Mara and Ikora. Take a listen.
How long have your hidden been privy to Uldren's resurrection?
Long enough to watch over him in your absence.
And you didn't direct him home. Why?
There was a concern he'd pick up some old habits.
You know the god made him sick. Riven twisted his mind. Eris would have seen it. She is not so easily deceived by skin-deep tricks.
It's true I made mistakes. Out of an idea of justice. Out of grief. Are you leveling the same scrutiny toward Petra? Wasn't she supposed to be watching his grave?
Petra has paid her dues. The Vanguard murdered him and is yet to pay theirs.
We both lost family. I'm sorry for my part in yours, but Crow has been treated.
My brother is dead. He was exhumed, his body twisted into caricature. You had your vengeance.
Is that what you're after? Cade, I still feel that grief like a stone caught in my chest. Some days it's more pronounced than others. Vengeance didn't erode that grief.
Then who am I to blame? Who sent him into Savathun's clutches? Who bludgeoned Uldren into a scared animal and drove him from his home?
You did, Mara. And those guardians who hurt him did so out of misguided anger. Don't make their same mistake. Don't make my mistake.
So Ikora is absolutely right. Mara refuses to, almost pathologically, admit her part in Aldren's downfall. And I think that this is some sort of defense mechanism for Mara's fragile psyche. Mara and Aldren's relationship has always been weird. And I mean outside of the incestuous overtones. One moment Mara is trash-talking and berating Uldren for the fact that he was far too eager to please, far too loyal, all while she kept him at arm's length. In fact, in Ravalanche 3, Jur-Ido calls Mara out for this. Take a listen. What is it with you two anyways? You never talk about him. You never seem to think about him at all. But he's dashing himself to pieces for you. How do you live as his favorite and only sister for so many centuries and hardly ever smile at him? Secrets, Mara thinks. You've got to have secrets from each other, so there's room for him to fill in the gaps with his own happy illusions. Two ships joined together rigidly will tear each other apart if they try to move, but a loose tether leaves room to maneuver and can be more quickly disengaged if necessary. But who's Mara trying to protect? Uldren or herself? Well, as we talked about last week, Mara stated, and I quote, "Jur," Mara said, falling to her knees, clutching her beloved's face between shaking hands. "Jur, on the day you worship me, you cannot love me anymore, for worship is to yield all power, and I cannot love what has no power over me." This selfishness of Mara left Uldren to come to conclusions like the one that we see in After the Heart Part 2, where Uldren goes to the Black Garden and returns with a flower. Uldren does this as an overture of affection towards his sister. Take a listen. "I told you not to go there," Mara says. Her eyes burn. She draws her cloak tight. "Are you not devoted to me?" "Sister," he says, "of course I am." "Yet you defy me?" "Yes," Uldren thinks. "Yes, aren't those the same thing? How could you care at all for something that never surprises you?" And we can't forget the little part where Mara fucked with Uldren's memories.
As first, my chosen form defined what an awoken could be. Thousands followed my example, willing themselves into existence within the distributary. Some, like Uldren, required help. His mind was like an unsteady fawn. No surprise he was unable to do it on his own. So I guided him, filled the gaps in his memory. I gave him a star to follow. He was bonded to me, and his devotion spiraled into pathetic recklessness.
Mara only has herself to blame, and Ikora calling out her shit was chef's kiss. However, I do wonder if Mara is all herself as well. I'm not saying she's Savathun. What I am saying is I don't think Mara's all quite herself, all quite there. But we'll talk about that more later. The next bit of the story that we're going to get into is the exotic quest, Ager's Scepter. Collect the SKUs, connect them to the Stargate, and enter the vault where it's being kept. But before that, more Aldren and Mara allegory story time.
Ager, much loved by the flock, convinced a great many to fly with the twins when they left the Hollow. He knelt before Riga and presented the crown of feathers their mother had crafted for her, and waited for her to respond in kind. She rose as queen, but did not gift Ager the scepter. His scepter. Despite everything, she still said he wasn't ready. It was a test of his will, right? His devotion. One he would not fail. For he was patient. So patient. Together the twins led the flock away from the Oak's Hollow to carve new nests in distant boughs beyond the forest's edge. Ager flew far and wide at Riga's behest, always thinking of her test, and returned home with tales of all that he had seen. Dark clouds surrounded them. Fires burned within trees, split by thunderous bolts. His twin kept his words close. Riga scattered prophetic bones and traced their curvature like weathered oaken bends. In them the signs were clear. A great storm did indeed approach, they in its path, and so they prepared themselves for war. I wish you'd just give it to me. I could use it to help us face what we both know is coming. It doesn't even belong to you.
This coming storm he speaks of was the flashpoint. The battle of Saturn against the Taken King. It was the shift from stability into dissonance. I failed to shape Uldren in accordance with my goals, but if I were to take all that he was and reveal that past to him now, would he be my brother? Or is it only his echoes that remain? I see many of those same beginnings leading now to different ends. Tell me, would you be so forgiving if Crow carried more of Uldren with him? Would you still accept him?
As we see through the Aldren Mara bedtime storytime allegory time, that Aldren believes everything that Mara has him do is a test. A test to earn the right to be loved by Mara, or even just treated as an equal, all while Mara wanted to shape Aldren into a weapon she could wield.
This is the path I led Uldren down. If certain actors had kept to their roles, I would have wielded Uldren Salve, Light-Bearer. But even Mara Salve cannot control everyone.
That is demented. Mara is sociopathic. She doesn't view other people in relationships of equality. Her entire relationship with Xur Ido was predicated on the fact that Xur remained the dominant one. More like a kink than actual love. Her relationship with her brother is predicated on control. On him being the weapon she wants him to be, and then bitching when he does exactly what she wants him to do, or when he acts in a way that is exactly the way that she made him to be. At the end of the day, this is all clearly an effort, as we read in Ravalanche 3, on Mara's part to protect her own fragile psyche, regardless of who it may hurt in the process. In the Ager Scepter lore card, we see Uldren telling stories. We get a side of him that is not the arrogant and malicious asshole Uldren pretended to be, and Mara's berating him for it. While I understand that this lore, narratively speaking, comes before Mara's new outlook on life, it shows a pattern of selfishness and her need to control Uldren, and not letting him find happiness in the things that he enjoyed, always needing to make some kind of comment. But we'll talk about that more later. Back to the episode. The Ager Scepter quest begins, and it displays everything redundant about Destiny exotic questlines, unless it's an exotic questline that has a special mission tied to it. It's a repetitive grindfest where you spend hours skinning hundreds of proverbial bear asses in a horde mode before running a handful of strikes and getting the Scepter. The weapon itself is clearly meant to be a PvE weapon, and I found myself really enjoying it. It also functions as a sort of key to open hidden areas in the Shattered Realm that were not originally accessible. These are all pretty quaint, and there is some opportunity for some loot, but nothing to write home about. And you're largely doing this so you can unlock a seal. Still, I did spend the better part of an hour ignoring the main questline in the Shattered Realm in order to search for these hidden locations. So, while the loot may be meh, the exploration is quite neat. It's a great gimmick, and I actually want to see it done more in the future. Maybe as part of an exotic questline, with better rewards tied to it? That'd be cool. Speaking of the Shattered Realm, it's more of the same. We've come to the part of the DLC where we're now recycling Shattered Realm locations. So there's that. There's nothing more to it narratively, except Crow wanting to talk to Savathun. Anyways, once you complete the Shattered Realm, you are summoned back to the helm for Savathun's story time.
I've been thinking about family quite a bit. What with all the spare time I have. It might surprise you to hear, but everything my siblings and I have done has been for each other. Even though the Vanguard isn't quite the same, they're no different at heart. You'd do anything for your family, chosen or otherwise. Go to any lengths to avenge them. Look at the Crow and Queen Mara. Siblings, bonded by cosmic fate, forever orbiting one another like binary stars. Mara reminds me of my sister. She's afraid, holding on so tightly because she can't bear to lose one more thing. But we all have to let go. When I am separated from my worm, I'll be separated from Xivu Arath too. And then my sister will be alone. The last of us. But as much as I care for her, I cannot stay like this.
Savathun talks about family in quite possibly one of her more manipulative conversations. While I do believe that there have been some moments where Savathun was being legitimately genuine with us, I also know she's plotting something. I mean, clearly.
Tell me, little light. What is your truth now?
Savathun's plotting likely has something to do with getting her own memories back after death and resurrection. I mean, becoming a Guardian's cool, but for somebody like Savathun, who has all these interconnected machinations and big plans and yada yada yada, becoming a Guardian and losing your memories is kind of pointless. And the memory loss is a feature of the Destiny universe. Lightbearers forget their past. That is essentially, at the end of the day, if you boil it down, what the narrative of this season ultimately is about. What are memories? How much of our memories are us? How much of us are our memories? Is there a way that you could bring back Uldren or Crow or Aldren Crow or some amalgamation?
The Traveler brought us together to rebuild Hawkmoon. We fought Savathun's Taken. We channeled the light. And we turned something dead and gone into something beautiful. Reforged in the light. For a purpose. I think I understand what mine is. I'm not just a light bearer. I'm not the man I was before. He's gone. Forever. I'm an instrument of the Traveler's will. I'm a Guardian.
Clearly, Bungie is signaling the fact that Savathun will also need to get her memories back, which is kind of a problem if she doesn't tell us where Osiris is before she dies and is resurrected. Then again, maybe that's her plan, to use Osiris once again as leverage. To add to that, I'm not entirely convinced that this isn't some sort of plot between Mara and Savathun to create a weapon they control, that they believe capable of defeating whatever Mara found in the Ascended Plane. And Osiris being the proverbial carrot on a stick is kinda sort of Mara's revenge against the Vanguard for wrongs she believed that she has not been paid for. I mean, we practically hear her spell it out for us.
Petra has paid her dues. The Vanguard murdered him and is yet to pay theirs.
Which is an interesting take because the death of Uldren is predicated on the fact that he murdered Cade. And if you remember, it was Petra at the end of Forsaken who pushed for the execution of Uldren. Just an interesting thought. Now, I purposely went out of order when talking about this week's story so I could leave off on the cinematic presented during the Ager Scepter quest. Take a look.
So you wish to hear the rest of my brother's story? Fine. I will oblige you. When the storm came, Riga and Ager rode the winds to meet it. A fleet of talons at their back. A great battle ensued. The storm took, as was its nature. Many fell, Ager among them. Riga could only watch as he tumbled down, 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 until her heart beat alone. She dove into the storm, giving herself to destroy it. Riga's spirit ascended higher into the sky where she hoped to reunite with her brother. Instead, she met the thing that sent the storm. A bottomless well of grief, unreachable by reasoning or bargaining or violence. A voice in the darkness. And so, Riga gathered her feathers into an aegis of wings to shield the world below. But over the years, feathers broke away. Futility wore thin her resolve. Then, one day, her heart began to beat as it once had. Doubled, distant, but different. A beautiful echo. Hope called her home. And though she prayed to find Ager there, he never returned.
Catch that? I'll play the exact part I'm talking about again.
Many fell, Ager among them. Riga could only watch as he tumbled down, 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 until her heart beat alone.
So, Mara allegedly felt Uldren die at the Battle of Saturn? Now, this could be author oversight, or a stretching of the allegory, or that story was always just kind of a prophecy on what was supposed to happen. But what if it's not? What if there are holes in Mara's memory as well from being reborn in the Ascended Plane? As I keep hammering home, memory is the underlining theme of this DLC, along with a focus on false or planted memory. The way the story seems to be presenting it is Uldren was always going to die and become a guardian, a tool that Mara could use, perhaps even one she wished for.
Through either Savathun's machinations, our interference, or Petra's neglect.
Uldren was resurrected and escaped the Dreaming City before Crow could be taken and, I don't know, have Uldren's memories superimposed over what would be a blank slate through either exomind technology or awoken magic or Riven? Because again, we're talking Mara's original plans, not what actually happened. Who knows? It's just an interesting possibility. All in all, the story continues to be pretty great. I do wish, as I've said many times, that the ending of the season wasn't spoiled with the Witch Queen reveal, but at least the Awoken family drama is doing a decent enough job of being interesting and carrying the plot. One does have to wonder where Crow's character goes after all of this. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Remember to like, but only if you did, subscribe for more. Feel free to donate to my Patreon if you're feeling particularly generous, but above all else, stay frosty.